Alysa Wen-li to come on stage. She's been with the Democratic Progressive Party for about 10 years, where she has basically worked in the International Affairs Department and was an associate researcher. She was in the 2016 presidential election campaign. Before she just took the current position, which is the Deputy Director of the Department for International Affairs of her party. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Alysa Chiu from the Democratic Progressive Party. While I'm having a speech, I want to invite my colleague just flew from Taiwan, Dennis, to distribute some of a pamphlet we brought from Taiwan. It's in Spanish. We don't have an English version, but we have a Spanish version. So this is the only occasion we can distribute it proudly. I'm Alysa Chiu. I'm very proud to stand here with our liberal family today. This is really an honor of mine because I have a lot of previous colleagues who attended the LI event. This is my first time, but I feel so familiar to be part of this big family. Thank you. And as a lot of you have already watched a video earlier this morning, I don't want to mention too much about Taiwan today, but I figured that a lot of time we underrated Taiwan's democratic journey and the really touching story of Taiwan's democratization movement. So please let me begin by elaborate a little bit on our history for moving Taiwan as a democracy. Because listen, a lot of your touching journey of freedom fighting stories really moved me as a daughter of a political prisoner. So please allow me to share a couple minutes. So Taiwan was under martial law for a long period of time. We have almost 40 years of white terror period. And it was one party state for over 40 years until 70s and 80s. A group of courageous activists, dissidents, or political intellectuals who stand out to advocate for political openness and also stand out to fight for democracy. Those people are just like many of you sitting here today, and some of them join us virtually. And those people who were prosecution, who went through imprisonment, but they persisted. And actually, a lot of them become a founding member of the Democratic Progressive Party. So they show the liberalism and the activism rooted in our party. For my personal story, my dad was singing a song which was labeled anti-government, and he was prison for 5 years. But we were lucky because one of our former chairperson, who was a lawyer, human rights lawyer defending those political prisoners, while he was in prison, his twin daughter and his mother were murdered at home, brutally. So that just happened 30, 40 years ago. So those memories are still fresh in our Taiwanese people and even in my generation. So that's why we know that we have a hard-won democracy. So that's why we can relate all of you well by listening to your stories. And Taiwan's democratization is not achieved in one simple route. It requires a lot of involvement for civil society to push forward the reforms, and it also involving, of course, a lot of sacrifices I just mentioned. And other thing is we also need to counter the threats from China. For example, we just held our first presidential elections in 1996, which Taiwanese people are so happy to exercise our voting right, political rights. However, China fired a missile to Taiwan Strait, so that caused the first Taiwan Strait crisis. A lot of people chose to leave the country back then, but our current president, Lai Ching-te, that's the point that he started his political career at that time. While he was a doctor, he changed his career route. So mentioning that is because DPP knows the best how hard we own this democracy. So this is our primary goal into the government is we have to protect the democracy, make our democracy thrive and sustain and not be taken away by external forces. And up to year 2000, finally, DPP first time in power. And from 2000 to now, 24 years, we have governed the country for 16 years. And we are very proud to say that we were young before, but now we are pretty mature. And we were recognized. I know in the video we see in this election, we just won a small margin compared with the previous one. However, this is the first time in Taiwanese history that the DPP was able to earn the third consecutive term in Taiwan's democracy history. So this has meant a lot for us because, post-pandemic, there's a lot of economic downturns, but Taiwanese government, former President Tsai Ing-wen, was able to weather all the challenges and also bring Taiwan onto the world, despite that we are not part of the WHO and we are excluded from all the international conference discussing how to tackle this crisis. Taiwan proved that we can help the world by donating donating masks and all the gears everywhere around the world, and then we receive vaccine donation from different countries to Taiwan. So at the time, Taiwanese people realized that, and our government, the DPP government realized that the more we engage with the war, the stronger we are. And this international deterrence is very important for Taiwanese people to counter China's aggression. China's aggression is everywhere, that already mentioned very well in the video. Military threats every day. That's the Taiwanese people encounter every day. And economic coercion. They can easily ban our farmers' food imports, and they can easily use their economic tactic to punish Taiwan, especially before the election. They try to use their economic power to change Taiwanese voting direction. However, because of that, for the past 8 years in government, we try to diversify our economic investment. So now Taiwan's investment to China has decreased dramatically, and now our outbound investment to Southeast Asian countries, to US, to Europe, to other side of the world has dramatically increased. And so for all this, I want to really emphasize is that before we were counter-authoritarian regime, and now we are still a bigger authoritarian regime that is across the strait. So Taiwanese people has all the memories about how bad that was and how important the democracy is. So that's why in the government, when the DPP, now we're in the government, so there are a couple principles that we hold dearly. First of all, we want to make sure that Taiwan has a free and fair election. And also, we are very proud to say that we have a very peaceful power transfers for many times. And we have a local and central level of elections happen very regularly. And they are taking place in a very transparent and credible way. And secondly, we want to make sure Taiwan's judicial system and Taiwan's rules of laws are very independent, and which I think most of people recognize that and feel that we are protected by law. Our individual rights are never really being hindered by government. And other thing is that the DPP government really cares about diversity and equality. By mention this, as you can see, we have our female president, former president, and which is the very first in Taiwan. We are very proud of, and we actually legalized the same-sex marriage in 2019. It was a hard path that we want to persuade the society, communicate with the conservative in Taiwan. All the polls shows that if we pass the law, our supporting rate will be super low. However, the government was courageous enough to push forward, and later on we gained the young generation's support overwhelmingly. And for the diversity and equality, that we also stress on to encourage women in politics. Not just our female president, we have actually 42% of female parliamentarians now in Taiwan, which I think is one of the highest in Asia. And we also, in the local level, we have over 2/3 of women politicians in the local level. So I think Taiwanese people are very willing to trust a woman to be in power, be in politics, and help out with the helping people. So that is also diversity. Taiwan, we have different ethnic groups, and we have also new immigrants from Southeast Asian countries and indigenous groups. So we want to make sure that in every policies we care all the groups and minorities and diversity. So this is some very important element when we run the country. We should always keep that in mind. So we can keep our governments attached to our value when we founded the party. So during the time for, of course, the first 8 years when we were in power, that was the first time. So in terms of experience, we learned a lot from, we want to push a lot of things in a short time frame. However, we learned that as an activist, you always want to advocate for the most. But when you were in the government, you know that you want to make the reform step by step. That's a very big lesson that we learned. So we success in some other things. For example, we changed the education materials. It was very, very China-centric. It was not about Taiwan on the piece of land when we were junior high school or learning about history and geography. None of the materials are about Taiwan. It's because, you know, the Chinese Nationalism Party want to teach Taiwanese people some history that is not attached to a land. So when we first took the government, we changed the material in history so that they really led the Taiwanese younger generation to know about the land, to love the country, to build our own national identity. So that's a very key point that we make a good change. However, when we want to do it more, we want to promote transition justice. However, some of the people, conservative or people who were actually in the government during the persecution, they fight back a lot against this initiative. So we were able to do something, but not as much as we hoped to achieve. For example, we want to change Chiang Kai-shek Memorial. I'm not sure if you guys have been to Taiwan. Maybe in the future, I hope you have chance. But we want to change it to a Freedom Square. We want to take down the dictator's statue. But that time, we didn't communicate enough to build a social consensus. So that's why without the thorough communication, it's hard for us to achieve. So the government was labeled. It's all symbolic, you know, it's not important to do that. So this is an experience that we learned. For every time we want to push forward a social reform, or we would want to push some ideals that we want to achieve for the future, we have to do it slowly, step by step, and through very, very thorough communications with the people, and also communicate with the opposition to be able to move things forward. So I think that is a big lesson I observed when I was working in the government at the presidential office. And but back to China's aggression. So I know a lot of you here, we are very honored to be here today is because we know that China is exerting power everywhere, especially in the global south. They want to take away all the international support from Taiwan, but as we govern the longest, as I mentioned earlier, the more support we have from international friends, the less likely that China will take irrational actions on Taiwan. So that's why we really need all of your support. A lot of you are already very prominent political leaders in your countries. We really, really welcome your outspoken support to Taiwan. And that means a lot to Taiwanese people. And by passing resolution, if you're parliamentarian, or by advocating for Taiwan, write the pieces in your college to, some articles in your home, newspaper. Those are all important because I know all of you read about Taiwan's being attacked, military threatened by China, but very few of you really learn about Taiwan is such a symbol, a beacon of democracy, beacon of human rights, and we stand on the front line in counter authoritarian regime, and we are working every day to make us stronger to fight back. And the last thing I want to mention is seeing what happened in Ukraine after the full-scale invasion started, Taiwanese people showed tremendous support to Ukrainian people. And we know that, it's also the first time that Taiwanese people witnessed a war happen just like that. So people were afraid. Of course, the war started to notice Taiwan is there. Maybe Taiwan will be the next one. by that, so that's why now we are really putting all the efforts and resources to build our whole of society resilience, defense resilience. So this is our current agenda in the government, in different ministries, and we try to put more resource to build up the people's consensus on protecting Taiwan. So by your support, international support to Taiwan, and ourselves, we have a resolve to protect Taiwan. We want to let you know that we are together, and we hope to unite with the international world. With your support, that Taiwan can be can be stronger than ever, and then we want to be contributor to the world. With our advanced technology, with our commitment to human rights and democracy, and with all our efforts, we want to be the contributor. So thank you. So today is just a beginning. We are very happy to be here, but in the future, hope that Taiwan can be your valuable partners in many aspects. Thank you.